My name is Pat, and I'm from Harper, Texas, and I've been shearing goats for probably over 20 years, and I probably do several hundred a year this way. So, okay, the first thing we're going to do is get the machine set up. That's probably the most important thing that you start out with. Get the comb and cutter positioned. The comb is the bottom part. That's this part right here. The cutter is the part on top. And the comb is held on by two screws on the bottom of the machine. All of them work the same, doesn't matter what brand. Probably the most important thing is getting that comb set just right so that you have about, maybe a 1/16 of an inch between the tip of the cutter and the sharp part of the comb. If you have the comb too far back, that places the cutter forward and the tip of the cutter hangs over the comb, and what it does, it causes the hair to ball up in there and it pulls. Goats don't like it when you pull their hair, so you want it back about maybe a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. Now this is a little bit too far forward, so we're going to move it back some. Yeah, this is a 20-tooth goat comb. This one happens to be an Oster, but they're made by Oster, Heininger, Lister makes combs, Premier makes combs. This is called a 20-tooth goat comb, and it's made for goats, not specifically Angora goats, but goats in general. But on Angoras it works good because the tooth space, when they say a 20-tooth, it means it has 20 teeth, and the spacing between them is very close, so it makes it more difficult to cut the skin if you should happen to get some in there. And this one, if you have a newer comb cutter, it's real easy. If you push it all the way back, the cutter is going to hang over the sharp area of the comb, and you don't want that. Again, it'll ball hair up under it and pull. The goats don't like it when it pulls. Next thing you want to check once you get that mounted is move it over and make sure that the edge of your cutter doesn't run off the edge of the comb. You want to check that in both directions. This one's set pretty good. It's not running off. And you can check on the bottom. Usually the spacing between this little lip on the shearing head and the heel of the comb should be even. And this one's pretty good. When you tighten these screws down, you don't want to over tighten them, but you don't want them under tightened. If they're under tightened, they'll come loose and the thing will fly apart on you while you're working, and you don't want that. Okay, you want to make sure this is the adjustment knob for adjusting the tension on, or the amount of pressure that's on the cutter against the comb. You want to make sure that it's not loose. If it's loose when you turn it on, the cutter's going to fly off, and you don't want that, or it's going to damage something. Just enough to hold it on there, and then once we get it going, you're going to turn it down until it just starts to pull the motor down a little bit. Now, a freshly sharpened comb and cutter doesn't require a lot of tension on it. Then, as the thing heats up, you're probably going to loosen it a little bit because the metal expands and it gets tighter, and it'll start bogging the thing down. You don't want the thing to overheat. If your goats are clean, I shear 20-25 goats on a set before I sharpen. Yeah, I sharpen my own. A commercial shear, he'll do 50. Part of the reason that I don't get as much is I'm a little slower, and the longer it takes, the more friction, the more it dulls the thing. But a commercial shear takes maybe 3.5-4 minutes to shear a goat. I take about 15 to 20. It'll be a little longer today because I'm talking and doing this stuff. So anyway, okay, how you set for oil. Cuts down on the friction between the comb and the cutter, because this is just metal to metal. These clipper oils and things work good. People use the spray stuff and white clipping oil and stuff. I generally don't use those because they're not a good lubricant. It sounds funny, but I use old 1030 motor oil. And you think, well, it's going to stain the hair. No, it doesn't stain the hair because you're going to wash it anyway. And it's oil, it just washes out. So, okay. Okay, I'm going to put it in 3 spots. There's 3 oil holes on the oysters. There's 3 oil holes. I'm going to put some in this one, a little bit in this one, a little bit in this one. Then I'm going to turn the thing over. I'm just going to put a little line of it down the bottom so it gets to the bottom side. And I'm going to put some, these are called forks, where they move, they pivot in the yoke on this thing. And then I'm just going to put some on the blade. Oil's your best friend. Usually whenever I shut down, I always oil. I mean, like I say, it's your best friend. Otherwise, you're going to be sharpening these things and it wears them down quick. So, okay, big guy. Now, when I start, what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear his face, his head, around his ears, down his chest, and his neck. The reason I do that is because right now he can't see and he's frightened. And the noise is going to freak him out a little bit. Once he can see what's going on, he calms way down. Now, they don't like you to handle their horns because they use their horns to fight with. So you're challenging them. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, hold on, big guy. Come on. As soon as I grab him by the chin, he's fine. Yeah, he's ready to go up on the stand. I don't know, you want to pop up?
It's got 2.
Let's raise that up a little bit. You know, if their nose is pointed up a little bit, it's good. It's actually still a little low. There you go. Now you're just going to stand there, dude. Nobody's getting hurt. I usually go through I'll do 20 goats, I'll go through a half a quart of oil. I use lots of it because The more oil you use, the less wear and tear on your equipment. Now, the first place I'm going to start right at the base of his tail on the top. And that's called making entry. And the reason we're going to do that, usually the hair at the base of their tail is junk anyway. So we're going to make entry there. Then I'm going to go down each side of his spine from tail to front. Now ideally when you shear, you want to have a nice flat wrinkle-free area to shear on. You don't want to shear where the skin's bunched up, or you can nick them and cut them. That's why I pull it to make sure that it stays tight. Okay, then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clean up his tail here. Now back here on their tail, there's some thin skin down here. This is a billy goat, so it's not bad. A doe right below his butt here, he'd have a vulva. This is the vulva on a doe, and it's, as you can see, it's got a little spout on it, and it's real easy to cut that with the shears. What I do is I put my finger right over it like that. Then I shear around it. If you notice when I shear, I'm not holding the comb flat against their back. I'm raising up the back of the shearing machine, so you want about 20 degrees in there, because all the cutting that you do, or shearing, is done with about the last 1/5 of the tip of the cutter. The reason you don't use the full length is these things don't have enough power to really push it through. If you have a commercial shearing machine, a shaft drive machine, they use about half of it because they can really force the hair through it, but we can't do that. So. Now we've got a couple of areas. One's right behind where their leg meets their body, and the other one's where their leg meets their body in front of their leg. What you have in here is a little web of skin. If you try and cut up or against it, it's going to get in here and you're going to cut them. If you cut down over it, there's no way it can get in there. So That's what I do. Because I'm old and lazy, I bring something to sit on. Okay, this is a billy goat. Being back here, we're going to have a pizzle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it tight, but I'm going to go right over the top of it. It isn't going to hurt him. It isn't going to cut him or anything. Okay, there's his pizzle. It's cleaned off nice and shouldn't be any problems. I'm going to grab his leg down here. When I grab it, a lot of people go, ooh, I don't want to hurt him. No, when you grab it, grab it. He needs to know who's in control. Hold on, big guy, you're okay. I'm going to pull it forward. Watch when I shear here, I'm not going to go straight back and forth, I'm going to go around. That way I'm never cutting towards a fold of skin. Okay, question always comes up, how do you do the armpits? What I do is I take their leg, fold it back and fold it up. Now I've got two flat spots. It's flat here and it's flat up here. Plus it pulls all this skin so you're cutting perpendicular. In front of them on their chest, there's that area called their chest pad, and it has a ridge of skin all the way around. If you try and just cut into it, it's possible to cut them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut crossways towards the opposite leg. This one's a little messy. He's been laying in the pee. That's why it's all wet and stuff, but it doesn't hurt anything. I'm going to do his back leg, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to lift it up, and I'm going to shear him from the knee down so I can pick up his back leg. I'm going to grab his leg. I'm going to put it up, pull it up. Okay, whenever we do armpits, I always go from front to back. It's just the way the hair lays and the skin lays and works best. So. One of the things you hear me do is I talk to them as I'm working on them. Tell them, you're okay, big guy. And they deal with people, you know, I mean, you feed them every day and talk to them. It just reassures them they're safe. If you pull the skin up, the bottom's done. You're not going to have to roll them over to do it or anything. It's just much easier on everybody. I've seen a lot of people, they're afraid to touch their goat. They're afraid to pull the skin. You know, you're not going to hurt them. I mean, if they're screaming, yeah, you're doing something wrong. Hold that skin tight. It's much better than cutting them. If you shear enough of them, you'll cut one. Guaranteed. Everybody does. Generally, if it's on the bottom side of the goat, you want to close it because they lay on that part and they'll get bacteria in there and get an infection. If it's above, you don't have to worry some blue coat or some of that Nylar stuff to disinfect. It works, but on the bottom I like to make sure they're closed so they don't get infected. Now in billy goats, everybody wants to know, how do you do their testicles? Okay, I think he's pretty much good to go. I don't worry about, little tufts and stuff, because in a week you'll never notice it. It'll grow out about a 1/4 inch or so, and he'll be fine. If you want to get fancy with scissors and clippers and fool with it, you can. But I guarantee you by the end of the month, he'll look 100%. You could use some scissors around his horns or between them if you want to. It's really up to what you want. When I'm done with it, I have a sock that has some oil in it, and I put that over the end. I do not clean it when I'm done because it has oil everywhere. And then when I get ready to use it again, I use automotive product. You can either use carburetor cleaner or you can use brake cleaner. It comes in a spray can. You can spray it off, it flushes all that off, and you're good to go. It gets rid of all the oil and the residue, and you're starting fresh. But I leave it oily when I'm finished, just so it doesn't get rusty or corrode or anything. If you take care of your equipment, it makes this pretty easy. If you don't take care of your equipment, you fight it, and it's no fun. That's all there is to it.